So a typical day, I'll get up at 5:25 and I'll immediately get into a few hours of focused work. And hopefully I can get a lot done before I get interrupted. I bought a vibrating wrist alarm that wakes me up early, hopefully without waking Farah, and it still wakes her up.
Tran doesn't want to mess with Galfond.
Galfond is trying and succeeding. He's the first player over 2 million chips.
Come on.
Galfond's full house eliminates Clayton Bates.
Beast Galfond.
Phil is one of the original online poker high-stakes crushers.
He has a very methodical and logical way of approaching poker.
I would make eye contact with Galfond.
Phil's a great poker player, mostly because I think he's a deep thinker about the game. If you've ever watched his training videos, you probably understand because he can spend 20 minutes talking about just one hand.
Even if he's winning, he still puts the same amount of time into examining his decision-making process.
Thank you, I'm trying.
It's hard to imagine that somebody with such a nice demeanor can actually be that intimidating, but if you know his poker skill set, then it's very easy to be intimidated.
I really like looking at you when I play.
I look very non-threatening.
You see a lot of players make it to the top and then disappear. I think what makes Phil a remarkable player is that he not only made it to the top on PLO, but also on No Limit, and also stayed there.
His just raw aptitude for the game is much higher than most other people. You can put him in a spot and he can very, very quickly figure out how to play the game at an extremely high level, even a game that he's rusty at.
He's a very influential part of poker for a lot of reasons.
I'm all in.
And I told you the cards don't matter to Galfond. All in!
I mean, I think when it comes down to Phil's legacy, he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer for sure, and that's saying a lot in today's landscape.
And yeah, he's just a great player. He's the real deal, you know.
My days are pretty full. I started waking up earlier than everybody, and I just get to work immediately. I'm writing, on calls with my social media team, creating content, working out, coaching, being coached. And then I have my other businesses. So meetings with Front One's Poker, meetings with Front One's Training, reviewing various ideas and getting back to people. I'm 5 days a week, 11 and a half hours a day working on business. And if I'm not working on business, I am with my family, being a husband and father. I noticed I was spending a lot of time in my chair in my office. So one of the things I started doing recently was finding any opportunity I could to pace. I will brainstorm, I will take calls walking around as much as I can. I will outline and sometimes draft newsletters.
He just paces. I love you.
The days really fly by. There are a lot of things I do throughout each day, and sometimes I don't even feel like I could fit it all in. I started playing poker at the end of my freshman year of college, and by my junior year, I had turned $100 into $100,000, and I was struggling to take school seriously, so I dropped out. My parents weren't thrilled, but they supported me through it, which I'm still very appreciative of. After dropping out and going full-time, things really took off. And 2 years after then, 100,000 was $1 million. And the year after that, actually, which was 2008, I had my biggest year ever and won over $8 million online.
When I was 19 years old, Phil was part of a group of friends of mine. We all started playing single table tournaments, and Phil was kind of like a legend of the group because he'd play the highest stakes, he had no fear, and he was always beating all the games he played in.
You know, I played with Phil back in the day online, and he was a crusher.
Back when poker was new and coming up, this is way before my time, call it the Black Friday days, Phil was one of the best no-limit players that existed. From there, he was sharp enough to make the leap to PLO, where PLO at that point, I'm sure, wasn't that popular of a game.
He steered into a game that wasn't really being quite as deeply as explored as No Limit Hold'em, and just found an aptitude for it right away. I think that put him miles ahead of the competition.
Who is this guy that's playing for the highest stakes in the entire world and has such a silly, dumb name? Who's this goofball and how could he possibly be a good poker player?
When I started playing poker, and even many years into it, I was extremely obsessive. And I would spend all day playing and studying. I actually, for a long time, was on like a 26-hour 8-day schedule where I would sleep for 12 hours and be awake for 14 hours. And so every day I just woke up a little bit later and a little bit later. And once I met Farah and started a relationship with her, those things had to change.
He's a busy, busy man, and I would much rather be with someone who is really driven and ambitious and a hard worker. So I just appreciate these things about him.
What boy?
I don't know. I don't know who I am. I don't know anything. I don't know who is in this grave. Why is my name on it?
A show I was working on in 2012 was canceled. Phil and I met. It was at a time in my life where everything was sort of falling apart, and so he met me at a very low point and accepted me for all my faults right away. He still managed to fall in love with me, thankfully. I had followed Phil on Twitter for a while, and I was always very drawn to what he had to say on social media. In a world of negativity, he was always this shining light. When Phil and I got together, he was still grinding online. I would visit him in Vancouver. He would play till the wee hours.
You know, when you're a college student, you have no responsibilities whatsoever. You can just pour all of yourself into whatever you want to pour all of yourself into. For me, it was poker.
We weren't the most responsible group of people, just because there was no structure to our lives. We didn't have to wake up early and go to the office. We didn't have any family responsibilities. We basically just did whatever we wanted.
Starting a relationship, starting a second business, and starting a family with Spencer soon after, I had to learn pretty quickly how to manage my time. With everything I was juggling, time just started to fly, and the next thing I knew, I looked up and I was no longer this young online poker hotshot. I had turned into something entirely different in the poker community.
At some point in Phil's career, he became more than just a famous online poker crusher. He became an ambassador for the game.
I don't really know when or why it happened. I think maybe because I became a coach, started a training site, and I became a very sought after coach, that a lot of people were learning from me. And when that kind of horde of younger players viewed me as a mentor in that way, their view of me kind of shifted in terms of, you know, my ambassadorship, I guess I would say, in poker.
He just inherited the role. It wasn't really like he stepped up and said, let me be this guy.
I felt like one day I was one of a dozen plus online poker players who had the same kind of status and skills and resume. And at some point, the community just started looking to me in a different way.
He developed a reputation as someone with a lot of integrity, was always thinking about what's just not the best way to play poker, but what's the best for the poker community.
There was this huge inflection point. It's been talked about a million times, but Black Friday was a massive moment in poker. In the spring of 2011, online poker essentially was banned in the United States, and every person that was grinding on the three major poker sites overnight lost their jobs. It was the moment of doom, basically, where a bunch of us thought our careers were over, we didn't know what we were gonna do, and we had to uproot and either move out of the country or just find new jobs. Phil was the voice of reason for the poker world. Everyone just kind of went to him to say, hey, you know, what should we do about this? And is it gonna be okay? And I think that was when Phil kind of transcended being a high stakes, really good player to being someone who the community relied upon for their advice and support.
When you are at the top, you are someone that people look to for answers. And I don't know if anyone has consistently had the right answers to things more than Phil does.
It's like we woke up one day and he was at the top of people in the industry that are most respected. And if there is a dispute or some kind of controversy, he is the person everyone goes to now.
The fact that Phil is in any capacity regarded as one of the household names that people gravitate to really speaks to what his career has been and the effort that he's put in to kind of give back.
He's the oracle. He's the poker oracle. He's just so well respected and has done nothing over the years to lose that respect, which is saying a lot for a poker player.
As I saw people in the poker community looking to me, I felt that responsibility and started to embrace the role of an ambassador. I never had an interest in business, and I started Run-One's training really out of a love of coaching. I was very interested in the game. I loved thinking about it, and that translated to loving to teach it. And I noticed that I had a natural ability to explain complex concepts in a way that most people could understand.
He comes from a family of teachers. His father was a statistician, his mother is a teacher, his brother is a teacher, and it's just in his blood.
Ace King 5-5 suited to the king, playing hands pre-flop that can make the nuts.
Phil was working with a company called Blue Fire Poker, doing instructional videos there. Wasn't really happy with the relationship, so he broke that off and asked me if I would start a poker training site with him.
When we launched Run-One's training, we came into a saturated market with a very different strategy. We were determined to be the best training site. And in order to do that, we charged 3 times as much as everybody else. They were charging $30 a month or so. We charged $100 a month. And that allowed us to spend more money and sign the best coaches. It allowed us to spend more money and release 2 videos a day while other sites were releasing 3 or 4 or 5 a week.
It was a risk, but we weren't afraid that they would say it was too expensive. That was actually fine with us. What we wanted to hear was, it's really expensive, but it's the best.
Really quickly, we became the industry leader, like shockingly quickly, without any paid marketing for the first 6 years, actually. And we started to gain some confidence in ourselves as businessmen, and that led to multiple other projects, most notably Run-One's Poker. Online poker was in crisis. Run-One's Poker actually was born out of a fear that we had as poker players. PokerStars had been the industry leader for a long time, and they sold to Amaya. And with that sale came a lot of changes in their company strategy and their policies. And the beauty of poker to me is that you can sit down at the table and you can actually win, unlike other casino games. With a couple of the early decisions they made under Amaya, I feared that they were heading in a direction of turning online poker into a poker-themed casino, where people could play, but nobody could win in the long run, so there could be no professionals.
With Run-One's Poker, we saw an opportunity to just be maximally transparent with our users and actually involve our users in the business decision process. Because really, especially with a poker site, your poker site is nothing without your players, because your players provide the liquidity. It's not like an online slot site where they are generating the revenue for it. They are actually creating your product by competing in those games.
I was in touch with a friend of mine who used to work at PokerStars. And through conversations with him and with my co-founder Dan, we researched the idea, we talked about the idea, we thought a lot about it, and eventually decided that, I think we could do this. I think we could launch a poker site.
We thought that we could build the best looking and best functioning poker site in the industry.
And then, frankly, things spiraled out of control.